Stuff. Well, we just hit 1 p.m., so we're going to start to see more and more viewers now come on board. So if you've just joined us, welcome to our 8th edition of this Facebook Live that we do with a partner, a customer, and talking around pertinent topics that are going around in people's minds right now. The idea of these topics is really always to try and really get in the merchant's head, or a founder's head, and find different ways, different anecdotes, different best skills to share in order for them to grow, monetize, and really scale their businesses. We're joined today by Ryan from Sezzle and Neha from Switch Grocery. So Ryan from Sezzle has been around with eShipper and our partnership for about 2.5 years now. He's recently moved to Canada. He's recently going to move back home. But I think Sezzle has seen a phenomenal growth over the last 3 to 4 months. In the last 3 to 4 years. And as an organization, I think the service that you provide, the buy now, pay later, has just been unbelievable to merchants and founders who are really trying to reduce that checkout abandonment. Neha from Switch Grocery has been an eShipper customer at eShipper Plus, our fulfillment facility, as well as on our online platform. Her business has grown significantly due to COVID, especially being in the food industry and people not being able to go to the grocery store a lot. I think she has curated a phenomenal bunch of products, and I would love to hear from both of you. So Ryan, maybe give us a little bit more of an intro. Tell us a little bit about what's happening at Sezzle right now and who Sezzle really is, and then we'll move on to Neha too.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Imtiaz. So like you said, I've been at Sezzle for a couple of years now, and was on board when we began our partnership with eShipper a couple of years ago. I moved from our global headquarters in Minneapolis to Toronto just under 2 years ago with one of my colleagues to open our first international office. So at the time, it was our first international expansion, and what's now turned into a pretty burgeoning source of different international expansion opportunities around the world, in India and France and a few different regions. So it's a really exciting, inflection point for the company in general. Look at the space overall with the different IPOs that have come about in the US and Australia over the course of the last year or two, and all of the metrics that both Sezzle and even most of our competitors are putting out. I mean, the space in general is growing, and I think a lot of that, of course, is just going to be backed by, of course, changes in consumer trends that we'll, of course, dive deeper into today. But also merchants realizing that this has turned into a must-have from a nice-to-have. And so I think that is only going to continue to compound over the coming couple of years, and I'm pumped to talk more about that today.
Absolutely. And tell us a little bit about what you're seeing with some of the founders you work with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, so I mean, we look at it really from two sides of the coin. So from a retailer perspective, we're trying to help them out with a couple very key e-commerce metrics. So conversion rate, average order value, the lifetime value of their customer. We really try to focus on, repeat usage through our platform. And traditionally, we see a 10 to 15% lift in that overall conversion rate. An average order value lift can be anywhere from 10% for people that sell, closer on the high end of our per transaction limit, which sits around $1,500, up to even in some cases with one of our partners, Softmock, who just approved our most recent case study of a 50% average order value lift.
Wow!
So it's such a drastic range, and it's the nice thing about Sezzle and buy now pay later in general is it's fairly industry agnostic, and it's just more related to the price point where we're effective. And so it's a really exciting, middle ground for us to sit, where we've got this mission of financially empowering the next generation, helping young shoppers be in a better fiscal situation in the future, but then also doing that by way of assisting retail, assisting the shift into e-commerce. And at the end of the day, the shift into really more flexible options, whether that be through payments or shipping ideas and things like that. So huge space, clearly growing quite significantly, but candidly, it's nowhere close to done.
I can't let you go without asking you which football team you support.
I in the U.S., I'm of course a Minnesota United guy. I'm born and raised in Minnesota for 20 years. But I grew up watching Barcelona when they were, great with Messi and Eto'o and David Villa. So, yeah, It's a rough time of the year right now for those boys.
As long as you're not a Man United supporter, I'm good. You can stay on.
Who do you support? Liverpool?
I support Arsenal.
Oh, yeah, yikes!
That's amazing.
You've been hiding in a hole the last couple of years,
Look,
or what?
I'm a hoper, okay? I'm just a guy that has high hopes, and hopefully one day we'll do what we used to do. Moving on from me,
You've had your time.
Neha, give us a little bit of background on yourself, Switch Grocery, and kind of what your business does.
Sure. So my background is I'm actually a CA, accountant by profession, turned entrepreneur. It's a little bit hard to find these days, but accountants do make good entrepreneurs too.
Absolutely.
And what Switch really is we're lucky enough, Imtiaz, to have two missions. Our first mission is to help food products get to retail. One of the comments is making me laugh. One more mention of football and I'm out. But our mission really is to help our food suppliers get to retail. Traditional retail takes 5 to 10 years. We want to help food suppliers get to retail faster, get to our customers faster than traditional retail. And our second mission is just to support our customers on their health journeys, especially during this pandemic. Many of our customers follow a low-carb lifestyle, have type 2 diabetes, have celiac. So we carry a variety of food products, keto-friendly, paleo-friendly, manufactured in a nut-free facility. And we are all across Instagram, TikTok. We have a Facebook group. So we really try to be there and show up for our customer. We call them our customer friends every day.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. So with that being said, I think the audience is really looking at, what are the key things that have changed over the last year with COVID, and also how to kind of tap into some of those changes and really make a successful decision in terms of growing your business, scaling it, but keeping that sustainable growth. So with that being said, let's move on into the actual topic that we want to discuss today. So we're going to be going through, the targeting of the at-home consumer and really looking into the mindset of who we're working with. Are they new to the business? Are they new to online shopping? And more importantly, what are their interests? What do they care about? What's really, really important to keep them coming back to your store? And more importantly, when they are at checkout, how do you keep that transaction going? So we'll touch on a bunch of different areas that we can really try and pan out the right way to go after this type of new business. So within the agenda today, we're going to be discussing about 2020 and COVID and how shopper behavior changed. I know, as an example, myself, my elderly parents are now on Amazon. They really do know how to use their credit cards online, and that fear of scams and things like that, fraud, have all kind of gone away. They're still vigilant about it, but they know that they have to get through and buy online. Now, with this new audience, whether it's the older generation or the younger generation, how do you meet their expectations? What are their expectations? And as they kind of come into the market and start to buy, what are the different areas that we can help our merchants and our founders really tap into that, maximizing the checkout transaction as opposed to the abandonment? So we'll talk a little bit about the evolution of credit. So Ryan is going to talk a little bit about Sezzle and how buy now, pay later works, and the process of onboarding Sezzle, as well as some of the metrics that they've found in terms of their market growth. Neha is going to be touching on marketing mixes and what's worked really, really well for Switch Grocery. Neha and I spoke about 3 weeks ago, and one of the amazing things that happened with Switch Grocery was they were able to grow their business 4x. So they quadrupled their business in COVID. And there were certain things that they tapped into that really worked well for them, and certain things that they learned that they tapped into that didn't work so well. So we'll talk a little bit about the marketing mix and really understanding your strength as a business, as well as who your consumer is and where they are looking for business. And then I guess the last part is really talking about different strategies. Once you've got these home consumers and this new gen coming online to buy your product, what is it that makes the perfect experience for them to come back over and over again? So with that being said, what we did find in 2020 was there was a significant shift in the consumer behavior. The lockdown pushed more and more people online and made them want to purchase more. Ryan and I were just talking about how, when you're working from home and you're not allowed to go out, what do you do for entertainment? You need to buy stuff, right? You probably never thought about this before, but you now need to buy fitness equipment, for example, because you can't go to the gym. Or you'll buy board games so you can actually have, some level of social play at home with the family and so on and so forth. So a lot of people went online and certain industries really capitalized on it. Neha's business is so pertinent in the sense of, there are certain people that don't want to go out to buy their grocery. And they don't want to just buy plain grocery. They want to be able to curate their product that they buy. They have certain dietary requirements and so on and so forth. So a bunch of businesses did really, really well, but it wasn't always about the product that they sold. It's about how they tapped into that market, how they adapted their look and feel, and how they really went and made it simple for people to buy. So we'll talk a little bit about how, the consumer of 2019 changed in 2020. People who are easily able to go online and buy ended up purchasing online, but there was a big shift in the guys that like to go to retail stores, like myself. I actually like the experience of going into a retail store and trying, apparel or shoes and being able to make a decision and choose between a variety of products, as opposed to being online and having to go from screen to screen and open multiple tabs and so on and so forth. So within the next session, what we want to describe is the online shopper. And, we want to see some questions from you guys in regards to really kind of talking to us about what you feel is the online shopper too. So please feel free to engage with us throughout the session and ask your questions, because we will stop and answer those questions on the fly. We want to understand tactics and strategies to meet as well as exceed the expectations of the evolved online shopper. And then talk about some of the challenges. Neha, I'm sure you've seen a bunch of challenges this year in regards to delivery times, in regards to the fulfillment hubs, COVID, and everything else playing its own part in your buyer or seller journey. And then we'll go through in terms of just understanding how our partner, Sezzle, has made it really simple for buyers to make a decision online and has allowed merchants to really accelerate that growth. So without further ado, let's jump straight into some of these pertinent topics. So Ryan, if you don't mind, talk to us a little bit about the metrics, the statistics that you found in regards to who these new shoppers are and what they look like.
Yeah, and I want to take a small step back quickly and just explain the business model. I'm afraid I didn't do that in too big of detail at the beginning, but what we do is really simple. We let shoppers pay in 4 interest-free installments over the course of 6 weeks. So for shoppers, what we're really trying to do is focus on giving them greater purchasing power. They need to, of course, there are many things in their day-to-day lives that they need to pay for in full: groceries, going to the store, and paying their rent or utilities and things like that. And in many cases, they don't have the ability to pay for these newer charges that they may not have seen in other times in their lives. So we're at of course, really unique intersection for assisting these shoppers. And then, of course, when you talk about metrics, what we're trying to do for these retailers like Switch Grocery is help them acquire net new shoppers. So people that are browsing on their site. And of course, Neha will be the first to tell you that a good product and especially a healthier one is not always cheap. And so when you look at converting shoppers online, you're always trying to be, the most flexible, the most customer centric, and that really aligns with who we are and what we do. So when we look at 2020 in general and COVID overall, it's one of the great catalysts, I suppose, for just e-commerce in general, but even more so for payments overall. At the beginning of the pandemic, many analysts were expecting that just e-commerce and retail sales overall, even in stores, were going to drastically go down. Of course, they did in store, but they're projecting about a 16% decrease in e-commerce over the whole of last year. And it was the exact reciprocal. It was around, I think, a 27% lift in overall e-commerce sales last year, which is a drastic difference compared to the expectation. So, of course, COVID, like you said before, driving people online in a heightened need for people to get items faster and get items that they need in a wide array of different searches. So one of the things that we do that's been so great is we have a store directory where shoppers can simply come on and take a look at all of the 26,000 plus brands that we work with. And that's another great referral source for us. So to talk a little bit more about the customer themselves, these shoppers, their buying habits, of course, the things that they buy hasn't changed a whole lot. It's just the avenue and the way that they actually make those purchases. So huge shift to online, even further and greater shift to, of course, a mobile, where we're seeing, I think, 75% of transactions, at least from our customers, said that they were online overall, which we even saw that internally with our metrics, where about 90% of our checkouts happen on a mobile phone. And so in order to of course, keep up with that trend, we're the only partner or player in buy now, pay later in general that actually has a mobile application in Canada that is fully transactional and allows shoppers to, check out those unique brands that we work with. So it's been, of course, a really exciting year for us. I think at the end of the day, we were, well positioned to succeed with the current trends. But that said, I think that positioning is not necessarily simply due to offering a flexible payment method, but it's also about the way we do things. And I think here in a little bit, we're going to talk about, the way that shoppers consider the brands that they purchase from. But one of the big catalysts for us was being the first buy now, pay later to actually transact cross-border in the US and Canada. So before I even moved a couple of years ago, we were instantly able to give Canadian shoppers access to the thousands of sites that we work with in the US, and simply could check out with Sezzle even before we had, an in-person presence in the country overall. And so since we launched, we've launched with over, I think at this point, 1,500 Canadian stores, ranging in such a wide variety of different industries, from grocery to streetwear to men's and women's apparel and housewares. But at the end of the day, we're seeing, the biggest shift that we're seeing is people, and if I can speak candidly, people want to shop from brands that give a shit. They want to shop from brands that care and are sustainable and do things that align with the missions that, they personally have. We saw in an internal survey, and we have over 2.5 million unique or active users right now on our platform, which gives us a great bank of essentially data that we can go to and ask questions to and find out really what are these trends? What are these people looking for? How are they going to make, educated purchasing decisions in the future? And the biggest driving force has been people wanting to shop more locally and wanting to shop sustainably. So 90% of our shoppers said they'd shop more at a retailer if they were value or sustainable based. And so I think that's a huge shift. And especially when you look at Gen Z and millennials, which have the greatest purchasing power out of any other demographic, but also has the most difficulty with credit. And so this is a huge gap that we're assisting with. And the main reason we got into business in the first place was because 30% of millennials don't have credit cards. So when we saw that, and we've also seen this increase of, even younger consumers in the Gen Z generation being a credit averse, or especially at this point, a significant amount of our users that are Gen Z are seen as, subprime or credit invisible. And so these shoppers, where many people, detractors of buy now, pay later will just say, pay your credit card off on time. Don't carry a balance. For some people, that's an easy thing to do. And of course, we don't knock the credit industry. In many cases, for people, it's a great financial tool. You can earn points and rewards. And if you utilize that system responsibly, that's spectacular. But for many people, if they don't even have a credit score, they're very new to file, they're younger, they have no sort of history, like that credit invisible, which 37% of Gen Zers are, they don't really have those options. They can't attain that credit card.
And just to touch on some of the numbers you've given there, I think one of the pertinent things for merchants who are listening online today is that statistically, there's $30 billion being spent locally in Canada in regards to e-commerce spend and purchase. And just to touch again on that point, because let's bring it back to the merchants and the founders who are listening in today, trying to really take away, golden nuggets. 50% of a $340 billion industry in the US is cross-border. So consumers in the US are spending 50% of their buying money cross-border into Canada. So you have now the ability to not just sell 30 billion in Canada, but also to this other 50% population in the US who's spending $340 billion. And you're targeting these younger buyers who, for example, don't have that credit history or that credit ability, by giving them the ability to still purchase, even like you said, more expensive products, but be able to still afford it by buying now and paying in installments later, right?
Yeah. And it is, just to your point, it's a tremendous opportunity. And like I said before, when we turned on our solution in Canada, before we even worked with a single Canadian retailer, that was the exact opportunity. It's going live and giving access to those Canadian shoppers of brand new brands, but also the reciprocal of that, and trying to drive, US businesses to focus more on the Canadian market. I mean, and Neha is going to explain quite a bit more about, Facebook and different marketing and ad strategies in the future. A bulk of the ad strategy on Facebook is just going to go at the US, given it's of course a larger market. And many times with cross-border, people simply, fail to think of the neighbors in the north. But this is another, of course, really effective channel for people to get access to a bank of shoppers that are eager and ready to shop, of course, shop local, shop sustainable, and do that in a flexible manner.
Okay, and we talked a little bit about price and why that is so important. I think Neha, Ryan picked a little bit of your product because it's a little bit more of a, there's a specific market you're going for, which is people with dietary restrictions, for example. It is a curated product and so on and so forth. How do you think, people perceive the price when it comes to the checkout journey? And, back to Ryan's point with the ability to provide credit to younger generation, to people who weren't able to afford that credit, how do you think that would switch up in regards to your checkout and your pricing structure?
That's really interesting. I'm learning a lot from Ryan in this session. I think that people, and I'm seeing a question come through, if people are sensitive to price. There definitely has been this shift towards budget shopping after the pandemic started, or being able to find a deal, even with people who do have job security, because there's a lot of uncertainty around that. I think that our customer generally gravitates a little bit older, and I wonder, that's, I mean, and this is just my live off the cuff thoughts. I wonder, the older customer, I wonder if they would be interested in the buy now, pay later solution. Yeah. But I do see our younger customers taking advantage of it.
Gotcha. And
that's and to jump in there, that's a really good point. And I think the way that you look at the different demographics and how they gravitate towards, different payment methods, or even just technology in general, the older generation has, tended to be more of a laggard in adopting consumer trends and payment trends or technology trends a little bit later than these younger generations. But that said, that does not mean that they're not going to catch up. They may be the smallest, base of our users. But that said, we do work with over 26,000 brands, and many of which have a similar target market. We work with a large bone supplement brand out of Vancouver called Algae Cal, who has a target market of, shoppers that are 45 to 60 plus. And they've used Sezzle not only on their e-commerce site and seen significant traction and that average order value lift that I mentioned before, but also in their call centers. And they utilize a new solution that we've rolled out for invoicing, where we've actually made it easier for older consumers to access this solution, where sometimes, yes, browsing on a website and going through what is traditionally a fairly intuitive checkout may be more difficult for the older generation. So we're able to send them, a direct link to give them access to purchase a product through the call center. So we're actually enabling customer service reps of these organizations to better assist these customers, explain their product, and really, get into the homes of shoppers like never before, but also at the same time, giving them context as to why is this a beneficial payment method for you. And as we all know, a dollar in hand is greater than a dollar not. And so if you can, regardless, spend that money on things that you have to spend it on right now, and give you, a paycheck or two or three to spread that out over time, it's just going to give you much more financial freedom than you would have had otherwise.
So just jumping into a couple of the points that we've taken away, and some of the questions that have come through. I think you answered James's question really well around 4 or 5 minutes ago, just after he had asked the question, which was, why is it, why do younger consumers gravitate more towards this type of payment option? So you talked a little bit about credit and the fact that they probably have less disposable income to use at checkout today as they would if they were a little bit older and could save a little bit better. Mallory asked a question around the second most commonly cited abandoned carts is price. What is the first? Would any of you guys be able to answer that?
I'm going to go out on a limb and assume it has something to do with shipping.
Yeah.
So Mallory, really, really great question, and we'll touch on this down the slides a little bit later. But yes, it is shipping, and I think a lot of people kind of see, if I have to pay shipping, where else can I go and get free shipping? And a lot of people end up going towards the Prime and so on and so forth.
Imtiaz, I wanna go back to James's question, because I failed to mention something that we've also just recently rolled out at Sezzle, which is a tremendous value add for young consumers in particular, but also shoppers that have that low credit or invisible credit. One of our product offerings or key features is called Sezzle Up, which is actually the first solution offered by a buy now, pay later product that allows you to opt into credit reporting. So positive and negative values, but obviously our intent here is that we're essentially credit on training wheels. We're giving shoppers the ability to build their score, all the while they're unable to, attain a credit card, even due to, of course, the credit card regulations from 2009, simply related to their age. Now they can, of course, at this point in time, build their credit with Sezzle. So once, they turn 18 and turn 21 and they're given greater access and an ability to build their score elsewhere, they're better situated to get a better card or a premium card or something that's going to give them better rewards. And so this is a tremendous opportunity to attract that younger audience, but also and you talk about your daughter and being a parent and trying to be educational and trying to introduce them to being intelligent with their finances. We also, alongside of that, have this program within our platform called Sezzle U, which not only is going to give more context as to how can you build your credit score, but how can you be intelligent with your finances. We've got this, of course, incredible product that drives revenue for businesses. But at the end of the day, we want to do that in a sustainable manner. So it's the way we look at it is payments with a purpose.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. I want to jump into one example that you had said, Softmark has allowed us to talk a little bit about the case study of their growth of 50%. I think for people listening today, what are the key things that they were able to garner in order to be able to grow 50%?
Well, one of the biggest ones is the fact that 43% of their transactions actually came from current Sezzle users. So the instant that they turned Sezzle on their checkout, they were given access to net new shoppers that potentially had never heard of Softmark, especially for, a very well-established Canadian business that's now beginning to look at now the US market as we talk about cross-border, where, of course, we've got a larger base in the US. We've been established there for longer, and it's been of course, a larger market. We can give instant access to that larger base and help these businesses grow and scale.
That is amazing. So in essence, I can either be a merchant who's a Sezzler, or I can be a consumer who's a Sezzler, and I end up becoming a part of a community and a marketplace where if anybody else is using Sezzle, I'm able to see that I can actually have the option to buy now, pay later through them too.
Exactly. So you log on to our app. Not only can you push payments back for free, which was a huge development for us during COVID and realizing people lost their jobs or had been furloughed, but you can also see access to new deals. Our marketing team has spent a great amount of time over the last couple of weeks and months trying to be more personalized. So on a monthly basis, how can we introduce not only these 26,000 brands, but also shopper trends or specific deals or products that are flying off the shelves? So it's really all about almost conversational commerce and trying to introduce these people to, at the end of the day, products and brands they had not seen before.
Absolutely. So I want to keep kind of touching on a few things. So one of the points from our earlier slides, I want to keep moving to because of the time and, there's so much pertinent information to be shared. But one of the things you mentioned earlier, and Zahira had asked this question is, do I have to have a story behind my brand? My personal example is, I watch a lot of Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, and I see these brands who come in with a mindset of building communities and, having a story, like you said, giving a shit, actually get pulled into the dragon's minds or the shark's mind so quickly, and there's multiple offers, and people are really quickly trying to get a deal with them because they kind of feel this sense of these guys are different. They're bringing something completely different to the marketplace. How have you seen that that's really important? And Neha, I want to ask you that question because I think from your perspective of building communities, I know a lot of what you do is support your suppliers, support your buyers, and kind of share knowledge throughout. How have you found that journey for yourselves?
Yeah, I liked her question. I liked Zahara's question a lot. And the way that I interpreted it was more whether that does she need to have a cause? So you often see, 10% of my sales go X or 1% of my sales go Y. And I've seen the opposite too on Dragon's Den, Imtiaz, where there was a deal where the feedback was that it was too many focus areas, a cause and what you're trying to accomplish with your business. So where I would come at is very practically, do you have enough margin? And that's the first question. You need to first, and that's what we say at Switch, we first need to serve our customers, serve our suppliers, be profitable. If we can do that, we'll then say, and we need to do that well, we need to do that within our community, and you show up for your customers first. If we can do that, then we'll go to the next step. We're 3 years in now. We'll say, okay, we're going to find a cause, either supporting the food banks, diabetes. But I wouldn't go there because I'm realizing more and more that the main purpose, mission of all of us merchants is to have a sustainable, profitable business. That's the number one. That's how we contribute to society. If we can get there, then we add the cause. Otherwise, I wouldn't add a cause.
For sure. And going back to Ryan, we were going to talk a little bit about the metrics of the online buyer today. You talked a little bit about Gen Z. You talked about having a story to tell. We talked about the fact that price is, the second largest cause of checkout abandonment. But let's get into the mind of the buyer, because I want to talk about how to meet their expectations. But before I do that, I want to understand the switch. Like, what have you seen from the metrics of this new buyer during COVID, number one? And let's spend 2 to 3 minutes on that, because there's so much to cover over the next few slides. But I think what's important is let's understand who we're selling to, and then understand how we can meet their expectations. So if you don't mind, take us through a little bit of the mindset of who's coming to the market and who we need to really sell to.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is over the course of the last 12 to 14 months, shoppers are looking in different places. 44% of shoppers have checked out with a new brand in the last year, and they're looking to do so. They're trying to find new brands that either fit their new and engaged lifestyle, but also they're looking towards the future. People are planning vacations well in advance. 80% of our shoppers are saying that they're going to vacation more if a buy now, pay later product is placed in front of them. And so people are thinking towards the future. They're now thinking post-COVID. So I'm candidly really excited to see what happens with the vaccine rollout and how we can, of course, together combat this and get over this and through this. But at the same time, the biggest shift has been in net new brands, trying to find things that you've never checked out before. I'm even seeing that personally.
Absolutely. And I want to touch on a few of these points. So we absolutely see a huge growth of new entrepreneurs coming to eShipper on a daily basis. And we also see a bunch of people who really need education on how online shopping works and online shipping works, right? A lot of why we set these online Facebook Lives to really go into the educational part of it. We are at 1:30, so I quickly want to just reintroduce the topic and reintroduce our guests. So we have Ryan here from Sezzle, Neha from Switch Grocery. We're talking about the online shopper and the evolving shopper who is now coming online, how to target these guys, how to meet their expectations, and then really kind of understanding the marketing mix that goes into pulling them and attracting them to your brand, as well as being able to ensure you exceed or at least meet their needs. I've seen a lot of stats about people shopping on their mobile phones. A lot of people now can't go to a store, are sitting in front of their laptops doing Zoom calls on a day-to-day basis. So when they get to chill out, they're sitting on their phone on their sofa and they're buying really, really quickly, right? So there's a lot of, I guess, adoption or adapting that merchants and founders need to do when it comes to actually targeting those guys. And I know, Neha, you're going to talk a little bit about the channels that you've used and kind of what has worked for you. But I can't go away without talking a little bit about TikTok and how that's really taken off in regards to how people are using things on their mobile and purchasing because they're seeing trends come up or they want to follow a trend and so on and so forth. So how have you guys Ryan, how have you found, TikTok playing some level of a thought process in the founders that you work with at Sezzle?
I mean, it's a necessity now. So, I mean, our marketing team just launched our TikTok strategy, I think maybe 2 or 3 months ago. And I don't candidly have too many stats on how that's performed, but it is a very successful way to engage with that young consumer. It's the most heavily used social application for Gen Z and millennials, which again is exactly what we're trying to target. So especially if that falls into your target market and your audience, it is an absolute no-brainer to be using it.
For sure. Now let's kind of think about the expectations these guys have, right? So we have these evolved shoppers online. We have methodologies to bring them on board. How do we keep them? And how do we ensure that they follow through and come back and buy more from us? So we have about 5 or 6 different things that we have found through our research. I would love for each one of you to kind of jump in where you find the topic makes sense to you. So what we found is, I'm home now. I live in a condo. I want to order things, but I know that the carriers coming to my condo always have problems delivering to me. So as a merchant or as a founder, I have to start thinking that every home is now actually a delivery center. And am I using the right carrier, in essence, to deliver to those homes? Am I giving them the right delivery experience? As a buyer, how much are you communicating with me in order to let me know where my shipment is, if you need a buzz code, and so on and so forth? What we found is 84% of shoppers are unlikely to shop with a brand that has poor delivery. 98% say that delivery plays a big part in their brand loyalty. Have you found that, Neha? How's that worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. We are so I'll break shipping into 2 things. One is obviously your shipping revenue, which is what you charge your customers. But let's talk about shipping costs. There's no money that eShipper is paying me to say this, but the best decision we ever made to manage our shipping costs was moving to the eShipper shipping platform. And that was specifically really important in the pandemic. And many of our suppliers have asked us how we've kept up with our volume. Really, you have 2 options as a merchant. You can either go set up individual accounts with Canada Post, UPS, Purelator, FedEx, Campar, and start at the lowest tier for shipping volumes, or you go to a platform like eShipper where you enter your dimensions, you enter your weights, you go to your checkout, and it literally lists each carrier with discounted rates. And you can pick the carrier depending on, for example, in March and April when the pandemic started, UPS and Canada Post were backed up. So we worked with the eShipper team and said, let's move all our volume to FedEx and Purelator, and where possible, right? And so in the summer, UPS was back up and UPS was very cost effective. So we moved there. We have used eShipper's private CPX service to reduce costs. So I think that's something really I always tell our suppliers, please, please, please don't sit there and, go into each single individual shipping platform. It's not worth it. You can get access to that's the only way that you can control your costs. Plus you can then rely on if there is an issue, are you going to actually, as a merchant, where's the best of your time spent? Is it spent on Instagram, TikTok, launching a new product, being there for your customers, or is it actually spent on literally being on the phone? This happened to me, Imtiaz, being on the phone for 1 hour with Canada Post until I found out that eShipper would do that for me. So I didn't know that. I was like, oh, wow, you'll do that for me? Okay, here you go. Here are the ones that have issues. Please give me an answer.
Now,
So
when it comes to working with these multitude of carriers, have you found that there is certain advice given to you in regards to how to ship to a PO box or how to ship to a condo building as opposed to shipping to somebody's house or shipping to a business location? How have you found your customers interacting with you because you've had this ability to choose who you want to use for what type of delivery?
I would say that our customer experience has greatly improved because they have all of these different requirements of, now I want to ship to work. It should be between these hours. And we just know, with our experience with eShipper, we just know that we should be using a specific carrier. We know for PO boxes, remote locations, we should try as much as possible to go to Canada Post or use CPX. So I think our customers have greatly benefited from having this. Now, things will still go wrong, Imtiaz. So as we know that there are some times we have had a customer enter the wrong address, and it's something interesting that I see not captured on these slides. But really, if you put yourself in your customers' minds, they are frustrated and angry right now. They've all been home for a year. And, our customer service, we don't take it personally. We get a few angry emails of even, oh, my box, is 3 days instead of 1. So, we do our best to just show up, answer cheery. And it's nice to be able to have an answer to be able to provide rather than say, hey, I need to call Canada Post, wait on hold, and then wait for somebody and the Canada Post system to get back to me. So I think being with eShipper has really benefited the delivery experience for our customers.
Amazing. Now, let's kind of think through the first process is delivering to your final mile. And Ryan, you work with a multitude of brands. I'm not sure now how much of returns you get being in the food industry, but what we've found is that a bunch of merchants are just getting really wise, right? They know that there is a return that's going to come at some point, and they want to think of that return really, really simplistically in a way that it shouldn't pull them or push them away from their day-to-day job. So when it comes to returns, it's a big expectation people have when they buy online, that I should be able to return a product that I've bought. Not being able to leave the house and not being able to kind of go to a post office and kind of deliver product. Having different policies as well as a really good way to manage returns is important. And there's 2 or 3 ways that we've kind of, as eShipper, come in and try to create the solution. One being, provide a returns label. And if a returns label with a courier company like UPS or FedEx, you can actually get a free pickup too. So the return label to a merchant will not cost them anything if the consumer keeps the product. It will only cost them if they actually end up using that return label because they're returning the product. So it's a peace of mind that my consumer has the ability to return if they want to, and I don't really have to get involved in the entire transaction. They already have the label to put back on the box. The other thing that we've found is partners like Loop and Returnly and Atomic Returns, all of these softwares that have come in and said, we'll put returns into the consumer's hand. Rather than Neha having to go in and reply an email, set up a return label, and kind of go through the entire thought process, these type of softwares are giving the consumer the ability to pick and choose what they want to return, and they actually get store credit. So they return back to the store, they actually end up buying something else or buying more product, returning the product that they didn't want, for example, for any odd reason it didn't fit, they don't like the color and so on. But it takes the merchant or the founder away from having to deal with that on a day-to-day basis. Ryan, from your perspective, how have you found, returns being pertinent to some of the buyers or the merchants that you're speaking to?
Well, we've had a material impact on return rate. It's simple as that. One of our fast fashion women's apparel brands based out of California, Toby, has actually seen a decrease in returns by around 50% on Sezzle transactions. And so it initially was actually something we didn't really expect. And I think when you look at, take buyer remorse, take a $200 apparel transaction or purchase, looking at your credit report or credit statement the next day and seeing $200 compared to seeing $50 with Sezzle, just psychologically, it's much easier to stomach. And that's provided a material impact on decreasing return rate, which is, of course, is going to be more fiscally soluble for our brand partners.
Fantastic. And I think, that is where the idea of buy now, pay later actually adds value to the returns management all in, right? And you see people kind of thinking about purchasing a little bit more because they can afford it in the short term, because they have the ability to, push those payments a little bit later. And like you said, buyer remorse, right? It solves a lot of issues for people because they're not spending that much money. They've got the product and they'll do with it, or they'll make it work in regards to keeping it long term. With that being said, I think there's a thought process as well to the fact that people are buying a little bit of things that they wouldn't have normally bought. For example, myself, I'm an avid gym goer. Like, I actually like getting out the house and going to the gym and spending time there. And my gym says, you have to book a time and you're only allowed a certain amount of people. So I started buying gym equipment. But not every carrier wants to deliver to my house. And when they do deliver to my house, a lot of them just deliver outside in the snow. And it's because the people I'm working with, the merchants that I'm working with, haven't picked and choose the actual right type of carrier for that type of product. I know that there's a lot of furniture being bought online because you can't go to the brick anymore, right? But I've moved into a new house and I want to buy a new sofa. I need to go online and purchase it, but use the right carriers, because what ends up happening if you start using the courier carriers, for example, there is extended charges on weight, on size. They don't want to deliver inside the home. There are certain carriers that will actually come in and remove debris and take it away with them for a certain price. So I think the idea is that even the expectation of being able to go to the brick and have to pay, a little bit more so that somebody can come into your house and fix your sofa before they leave, you kind of can start using some of these carriers in the right way. So a lot to be covered on the shipping section when we get to it. But I think with that being said, there's a lot of areas that we need to think about when it comes to meeting the evolving shopper. With that being said, I think there are a few questions that did come up. So we'll try and nail into some of them. Neha, Ryan, any one of you want to take this question on? Where do you see the industry going, towards the end of 2021, when hopefully we do have our vaccines and everybody is allowed to get out there? And what do you see it going to in 2022?
I mean, I can just quickly say what I think is going to happen in our industry. I mean, we saw in the amount of volume that we processed in Q4 compared of 2020 compared to 2019 was a 205% increase. And so that is not slowing down. We actually have our tonight Eastern time and tomorrow morning Australian time, our fiscal year results come out. So keep an eye out for that. But one of the biggest things that I've noticed and our company has noticed is that 80% of our shoppers have said that they'd want to use Sezzle as their preferred method of payment. And I cannot imagine that these stats are too different from our competitors. I think it really goes to show that buy now, pay later in general is here to stay, and it is a preferred method, and people will look to use it if it is available. And again, at the end of the day, it's going to drive a material impact in those e-commerce metrics, average order value, conversion rate, like I mentioned before.
Absolutely. Okay, let's keep moving on to the credit side of the market. So there is an evolution in credit. What are you seeing, Ryan, and what is Sezzle doing about it?
Well, so I mean, the market in general, especially as we talked quite a bit earlier about young consumers and their aversion to credit, they've seen what's happened with their parents. They've seen regulations after the financial crisis of 2008, where it's become a bit more restrictive for younger consumers to actually attain credit. It's either age restricted or it's income restricted, especially for many young consumers, whether they're in college or not. They're of course at the very early stages of making a decent income. So it makes it much more difficult to attain a credit card, like we talked about before, that has rewards and is at the end of the day going to have a low interest. We're seeing 48% of Canadians carry a balance on their credit card on a monthly basis. And they're not doing that. I mean, yeah, maybe a couple of them have a full year of 0% interest, but most of them are paying 15, 20, as high as 25% interest on that balance. And so people are rapidly trying to find different ways to check out that is going to avoid that drastic negative downside when they are forced to, carry a balance. And many people aren't carrying a balance because they want to. It's because they're not in a good enough financial position to pay the entire balance off. And that's a giant problem that we're working to and are currently solving. And again, to the second point on the slide, evolving alongside of them, instituting a product last year, a feature that allowed people to push their payments back multiple weeks, knowing their current circumstance, allowing people to build their credit with Sezzle Up, doing diversity and inclusion partnerships with different B Corps like Prima and Frank and Oak, and social good initiatives like we did with Ministry of Supply, where we actually donated $250,000 worth of starter kits of high-end workwear, suits, like technical dress wear, so people can look and feel their best when they throw their suit of armor on to eventually get back into the office. And so if you'll notice the entire credit card market, 2.3 million cards lost in the last 2 years, that is 10 years of growth. And where are these people going? They're gravitating towards alternative payments that are going to make their life easier, whether it's a buy now, pay later option that's shorter term, whether it's a longer term option that's not going to charge them any interest, which yes, may albeit come at the additional cost of the merchant, but it's driving a more engaging customer. So at the end of the day, I think we're very well primed to continue to succeed and see a compound growth on our business model and buy now, pay later market in general. So we're really excited to see where the rest of the year takes us.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Ryan. That's a lot of specific information, very pertinent to people's minds right now. Now we move on to one of my favorite topics, which is the marketing mix. And I love this because I think everybody can learn something new. There's so much change going on. So I don't want to take a lot of your time, Neha. Please take us through what is working for you in terms of optimizing your marketing mix, and take us through what you're seeing in the industry.
Sure. I mean, the number one thing is everyone is on their phone. So I always say that we need to meet people where they are. They're on their phone. They were on their phone a lot before the pandemic, but they're on their phone more after. So we really have done, I went back and reflected on the year, and we've really done 3 things. And I think these have really contributed for my merchant friends to our increase in revenue. The first one has been ads. And so our goals, we really have 2 goals. One is we need new customers. The second is we need customers returning. 2 standard goals. Every merchant has those goals. And the first way to get new customers is ads. So we have invested in ads. We use ClearBank to be able to do that. And I know that Imtiaz did a session with ClearBank. I found it really useful. You guys can go back and look at that. The second has been email marketing. And that has been, sorry, if you want to go back one slide, but that's been really key for us I didn't believe in email marketing 2 years ago. I used to say, I get too many emails. I don't like emails. And I cannot tell you enough to keep customers returning. You have to remind them of you. We have to remind them that we exist. That's the first way. And so email marketing, we've transitioned to a new platform called Klaviyo. We've set up a welcome flow. We've set up a pop-up. All of those things that I might have judged as a consumer, you know what? They do work. They really, really work, because some people like buying through email, and even I like receiving email from companies that I want to be informed, right? So that's a huge thing. And then the third one is seasonality, which is even just thinking about our customers and where they are. I know that this is really important for apparel, but it's very important for food too. People are not going to buy ice cream in the winter, and they're not going to buy soups in the summer. So we're really working with our suppliers to say, can we launch, a seasonal product of a soup to meet people where they are? Pizza crust, which is easier to ship in the winter. Chocolate. Let's do a chocolate launch, which is also easier to ship in the winter. So the seasonality, and as a brand, I really encourage the merchants here to come up with new things, even if it's just bundling your product. That's great. And then the next slide. Sorry, go ahead, Imtiaz. Did you have something to say, Imtiaz?
No, I was going to ask them to move over to the next slide. That's a good interjection. Go for it.
Awesome. And so here's the 2 ways that I would reach customers. One is, if you are going to invest in paid ads, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google Shopping, Facebook, and Instagram have the most targeting. So tomorrow we can go and create an ad and we can say we want to target people who are interested in the keto diet. And that's what we do. So TikTok, I think their ad platform is still evolving. It's better for organic reach, as you can see. And Google Shopping is really important for, I think, any physical product is really important. We put more of our money towards Facebook and Instagram, and we put, it's about a 70-30 split, 30% to Google Shopping. Organic reach, I always say that organic is as important as paid. The only places where you can meet people, you can get new people to see what you post, because everyone's complaining about Instagram, the algorithm tanking, is Instagram Reels, because it's not available to ads yet. So it's just all organic. TikTok, LinkedIn, really amazing space, and Clubhouse. So post there or pick your strength, and just pick one and go there.
I'll stop you there for a sec, okay?
Yep.
I think this is really pertinent to the people listening too. Number one, how did you pick and choose how much budget you put to any paid ad?
Testing. We just saw what worked. So if you have $100, go 50-50 on Google Shopping and Facebook, Instagram, and Facebook, Instagram outperformed for our industry, for food. It outperformed. And so we allocated more towards that. We're constantly testing.
And how do you focus in on the audience that you're going for? So how do you target the right way?
There are two ways to do it, Imtiaz. And it's just basically saying that you can take all of your current audience who you already sell to, and you can have create lookalikes, and say, there's going to be a lookalike of people similar to that who hang out on Facebook and Instagram. So we do both. That's one way to do it. If you don't have any customers, you have to go cold. And so that is really the topics, which is, if for us it's keto, for another food brand we carry, it's more of a yoga customer that we go for, and we target our, customers who are interested in yoga.
Yeah. Now, where did you learn all of this? Did this come through testing and trial and error? Did you watch a lot of programs? I know you talked about Clubhouse, and there is some phenomenal stuff going on Clubhouse in terms of engaging people like Gary Vee for a conversation.
Yeah.
But more importantly, a lot of organic information being shared there. How did you learn?
It's just what I'm interested in. So I think that's really I always tell our suppliers, and again, any other merchants here, go with where you're interested. If you're not interested in club, yes, everyone wants you to be on TikTok, but if that's not your strength and, you don't want to do that, then don't do that. Pick something that works for you. So I'm really heavy on LinkedIn because I love business. And so I hang out there. And it's really paid great dividends for Switch Grocery. I'm not as heavy on TikTok, but I'm more heavy on Instagram Reels. So that's how I learned. We also did hire Imtiaz last year. We hired a Facebook digital marketer specifically. It's your choice to be in-house or outsource. I like that she came in for 3 months, taught us a lot, built us up, and moved on. So I learned a lot from her.
Good. These are really, really good tips. I know somebody has mentioned to me that Instagram has created Reels to be able to go against TikTok, because TikTok is taking so much of the audience away into this engaged form, right? So my wife is a big blogger, and she's been using Reels, and every day she shows me all the different Reels created of the day, right? I think every mother right now is become a school teacher. So she's kind of sharing a bunch of ideas on, homeschooling and keeping the kids entertained and ensuring they're kind of learning and educating themselves. He's only 3 years old, my little son, but he's learning quite quickly. You talked a little bit about budget, right? So thinking about how much budget you have and spending it in the right places. I'll let you finish on that point, your budget-friendly point there.
Sure. And so this is again with merchants, you have money to spend and you might be limited in the resources you have. I would set up one Facebook retargeting ad. It should, because if you're getting customers to your site, you need to get them back. I would test Google Shopping. I would just install, these are just 4 things that if you could do today, I would go and do them today. Install a pop-up on your site. Hey, sign up, either get free shipping or 10% off. We do 10% off. You can go to switchgrocery.com and copy our pop-up. The other one, the last one I would just say is take all of these platforms, paid ads, organic, pick one you're comfortable at and just start today.
Fantastic. So Wissam has a really good question here, and I think it's pertinent to Switch Grocery as well. Did the return rate increase during the pandemic? And if yes, why is the best way, or what is the best way to tackle this? So did you actually end up getting a lot of people coming back because your food tastes so good, or did you make it really, really simple for them? I know you talked about email marketing. That's probably one of the most pertinent ways of being able to stay on top of mind and get people coming back. So what did you find worked really well for you?
So we don't allow returns. We went and looked across all the food industry, and on food, they don't allow returns. That's the textbook. That's what you say on your site. But if a customer comes back and says, I hated this, it didn't work at all for me, you need to make a decision as a business. Is it more important for you that, to get that, be there for your customer or whatever the case is? And I'll be really honest, Imtiaz, if someone messages us and says, what the F, this was awful, that's not nice. And so we'll be a little bit more strict on our policy. But if someone messages us and says, hey, I really didn't like this, I have a dietary issue, I've been diagnosed, etc., we'll say, let's split the cost. We'll give you back 50%, we'll keep 50%. They're usually very happy with that. So you need to decide, again, as your business, what is a reasonable return policy that you can afford and you can stand behind, and also you can make exceptions when you need to.
And Neha, I'm actually curious. Have you noticed a difference in the repeat usage or shopping rate from those people that did return, and whether or not you guys actually, credited them with some sort of it or didn't?
I mean, if someone has a really bad taste or experience, which is hard to control, you know what I mean? Like taste it's just so product dependent, they're not going to come back. And I think that's fine. But again, if it's a customer, I really look at that interaction as, if it is a customer that shows promise to stay with you, then the way that we handle that service, the return, or just the sharing of the funds, the cost, that is what has led us to Google reviews. We're at about 110 5-star Google reviews. So our customer service interactions, the ones that start crappy, end up in really positive Facebook or Google reviews.
Fantastic.
Okay. It's gonna be really interesting to watch how you guys continue to focus on that as you grow and scale. So I would think the more manual process will be more difficult, but of course, if it drives a lifetime value, then it's a big benefit.
Absolutely. Sure. Absolutely. So first and foremost, we are at 2 p.m. So we will stretch for the next 10 to 15 minutes if you guys are okay to stay on. Going back to the topic at hand, we've talked a little bit about understanding the consumer and the evolution of that consumer coming online over the last 12 months. We've talked a little bit about how to meet their expectations and exceed those expectations. We've talked a little bit about how to market and attract those users and keep them returning. Now we want to capitalize on how to actually keep them happy once you've got the order in. What is the next step? You need to get that product to them. They're all online shoppers, so there has to be a delivery done in one shape or form. So we'll talk about shipping, and we'll really kind of drift through a few of the high-end topics that we think are really, really important. So creating the exceptional delivery experience, as well as kind of reducing that checkout abandonment, as we mentioned earlier. We know that a lot of consumers have a knack to kind of look at what is free to deliver to me, and I will buy it. If I have to pay for it, then I'm going to think twice about it. I might come back later and decide. So a lot has to do with free shipping. And people are also kind of more apt to waiting a few more days to get that delivery for free, as opposed to having to pay for it and it coming quicker. However, what we've also found is giving people the option to choose between slow and fast has played a big part in mindset. Because when I'm buying a product for my wife, or I'm buying a product for a colleague and it's their birthday, I can't afford for it to be late. It makes no sense, right? So I want to have the opportunity to have multiple options, whether it's express and economy or economy and next day or whatever it be, so that I can actually give the consumer the ability to pick and choose what works for them at that time. So let's go through some shipping strategies, and I would love for both of you to be able to jump in and see what you found has worked for either your customer or for your business. So when it comes to kind of shipping strategies, the first thing is about getting your item ready to go out. So actually getting that fulfilled before it gets to the carrier who's going to deliver to the final customer. And I think there's a variety of strategies. Neha, you touched a little bit about doing it yourself, and kind of thinking through, what do you actually want to focus on? Is it kind of being on Instagram and Facebook and marketing to your customers, or working with packages, putting tape around them and getting a shipping label on it? How fast can you get your product out? Because the faster you get your product out, the faster your courier is able to deliver it. And with peak and everything else that's been going on during COVID, you still have to kind of take into consideration that there will be some delays and so on by the carriers. So Neha, how fast do your products get out on a day-to-day basis?
Definitely within 24 to 48 hours. So we still say pack. We used to pack ourselves, as I think Imtiaz knows, for 2 years. And then we transitioned first to the eShipper platform, the shipping platform. And then we transitioned now. So for all the merchants on, we outsourced our shipping because we got a notice of our lease ending and we didn't know where to go. And I was pregnant and delivering within 4 days. So luckily that's how we called eShipper, and we just said, hey, they called us. Somehow the stars aligned, and so now we fulfill out of eShipper in Brampton, and everything goes out within 24 to 48 hours, which is shocking, especially given we're still operating in a state of lockdown. And it honestly gives me shudders to think about packing myself, because especially in this environment, you need extra sanitation. Your customers really want, especially when it comes to food, even though it's packaged and it doesn't matter, they want that comfort that everything is being packed in a safe facility. And so we can really do that. We reinforce that on Instagram, all of the time. And also the opportunity for us to get everything out within 24 to 48 hours versus doing it ourselves, that's huge.
So in terms of why you made the decision was very clear. You were getting kicked out. You didn't want to do it alone because, it just didn't make sense. How fast were you able to get into the fulfillment center and actually start giving them orders to start packing and getting out the door?
It was pretty much a 2-week process. So we packed up, and eShipper sent us basically their own truck, and everything was inbounded within a week. So it was a 2-week process. It was before Black Friday. It was actually before the pandemic, which is really insane that happened. But it is a big reason. And I really want to emphasize this, you guys. eShipper is not paying me to say this. It's because they're not. And I literally know what it's like to every night look at the orders, have that feeling of, oh no, I need to do this tomorrow, or am I going to create a TikTok or Instagram reel, or have a meeting with Ryan from Sezzle to look at the buy now pay later solution. Where do I spend my time? It's really tough for all of the merchants to decide where to spend their time. And it was the fact that we were already at eShipper when the pandemic started is a huge reason that we were able to fulfill and actually quadruple. That's insane to me. And eShipper was able to put more of their team on our account to help us meet the demand. And we've kind of stayed there. I thought it would go back down, but we've just kind of stayed there. So that was really critical for us.
Perfect. And you talked a little bit about multiple carrier options. I think I'm not going to delve too much into it because you talked a very good example of when, a couple of carriers backed up, let's move our volume out to people who can deliver faster. But I think when it comes to multiple carriers as well, I alluded to this earlier, but there are certain carriers that are really good at delivering to a condo as opposed to a house. There are certain carriers that provide a same-day delivery option as opposed to an overnight or next day down the line. There are certain carriers that like big freight and heavy freight as opposed to small and light like Canada Post. and certain carriers that like multi-package as opposed to one package at a time. So just to give you a quick example, with the likes of Canada Post, if you ship 2 packages and each one package is $6 to deliver to Neha's house, with Canada Post it will cost you 6 plus 6, whereas with a carrier like Canpile, it'll probably be 6 plus 3 or 6 plus 4. So you'll end up saving on multi-package just because you're using the right carrier. I think one of the good things the algorithm on the eShipper platform allows you to do is you get to pick and choose either speed, either cost, or affinity to a certain carrier. I have so many customers that tell me, I just really like my UPS driver. He's really nice. He knows he can, he knows that when he comes, we'll give him a cup of coffee and he's got to wait for 5 minutes while we get our last orders in. So I think, it's really the ability to pick and choose without having the thought process that I'm actually going to be discouraged because I'm spending less money here and I'm going to get my bills a little bit higher, or my negotiations next year because I didn't spend that much money with a certain carrier. Talking about the ability to show door-to-door tracking, I think this has become somewhat of a kind of need as opposed to a want. People are not always home in regards to being available at home. People do want to have the ability to communicate 2 ways with their carrier and say, hey, do not deliver outside my door because there's a lot of pirates that steal my product, or you can deliver into my garage or my neighbor's house, and so on and so forth. So I think the ability to just have carriers who do that, some are really good at it, some are still kind of getting there, and working with a organization who provides you with this ability to pick and choose options is really, really great. Choosing intuitive or innovative ways of solutions when it comes to shipping and fulfillment. I think this comes back to the point of, depending on what your product is or where you're shipping it, pick and choose what's right for you. Neha, you alluded to CPX before, the word CPX, and I'm sure a lot of people in here are asking, hey, how does CPX work? What is CPX? Check it out. It's on our website. It's a zone skipping program that we've created to facilitate shipping from one province to another without having to pay for that entire journey. So a quick example is shipping from Toronto to Vancouver may cost you $15 for a £1 package because it's so far away and it takes 5 to 7 days. However, using CPX could probably cost you $8 to $10 instead. So you're saving almost 40 to 50% just by being able to use a exclusive carrier to eShipper as opposed to a national carrier by themselves. Ahmed has a really good question here for Ryan. Ryan, I know you've been sitting patiently. How do I set up a merchant account with Sezzle? So maybe spend some time and let them know how they can actually interact with you.
Yeah, very easy. So I see you guys have put my info here in the comment thread as well. So feel free to send me an email. But the easiest way to do it is just to go to www.sezzle.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see sign up or log in. You can follow the flow there to just create a merchant account. Someone on our team will automatically reach out to you with integration steps. So for most people, typically on Shopify or WooCommerce, we can be up and live and transacting in most cases within 15 to 30 minutes. Other platforms may be a little bit greater of a tech lift, but in general, we're able to do that, put your widgets on product pages, and then get you guys in our store directory all within an hour or two.
Perfect. So with that being said, we are coming towards the end of our Facebook Live. Neha, I want you to give us a few secrets that you keep close and dear to your chest. Tell us one of the ways or a couple of the things that you did differently or changed up in the last 12 months in order for you to be able to grow 4 times. Because I think everybody listening in wants to know, what's the secret of being able to grow 4x within a pandemic?
That is such a great question. I wish I could pick one. There is no secret. That is the secret, that there is no secret. And, I think in this pandemic, I have one, which is really thinking of your customers as people. I think that's really what, and I'm not saying that that's something different. Like, I've always been like that since I was a kid, but knowing that, as a mom, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired. So my customers are tired too. I'm tired of watching our, leaders every day talking about that. I promise the vaccine is coming. So they're tired too. Like, I want to go have a coffee with my friends. They're tired too. So this concrete example that I can give you is everyone wants to go out. Imtiaz, aren't you ready for spring? Are you ready for spring?
Absolutely.
Ryan, are you ready for spring? So that's sort of where, you know, we're in this session and I'm already thinking about how can I be there for my customers. I'm buying a really expensive picnic backpack from Amazon, or hopefully maybe another small store in Toronto, and then taking our food products and deciding and, you know, being there for our customers and saying, this is what you can take with you. Here's how you pack your picnic basket. You can go and have as many picnics as you want. Go to the Toronto beach. Everybody wants to be outside this summer. So I think that's where you need to, like, my secret really is I really just give a shit about our customers, because I want people to give a shit about me and really think about what my needs are. And so, yeah, being there for our customers has been the number one thing. And people often say, why do you post about mental health? Or why do you post about, you know, postpartum? I post about these things because, yes, we're a food company, but the way we're feeling and the way our team is feeling, which is tired, and is how everybody's feeling. And so we need to change the way that we are there for our customers.
Thank you. I think that's really deep, actually. That's really, really deep, because we are kind of, you know, even in the working environment, right? Like, you know, we have a marketing team, a stacked marketing team of 6 individuals who are great at what they do. But, you know, it takes its toll on them too, trying to be creative on a daily basis and trying to be there with reviews and everything else that comes with it. Ryan, on your side, I know you've been home for the longest while. You know, offices have been closed. Toronto's on a lockdown. What have you found, you know, that your merchants are telling you, or I know you're a founder of a business yourself. What have you found has been really great for people when it comes to the marketing mix or meeting expectations and so on and so forth?
Well, what we really try to do when we approach a new launch with Sezzle merchants is get to understand our partners. So like Neha talks about understanding your shopper and who's checking out with you, and really rationalize or empathize with their situation. We spend all the time that we can, our merchant success team, our sales team, especially our marketing team, diving deep and understanding past initiatives that have worked well for you, things that have not worked well. And then just collaborating from, you know, our perspective of having 2.5 million shoppers and being $1 billion business with the ability to grow and assist in helping people scale. But we don't look at this as simply, all right, you're going to partner with us, we're going to offer Sezzle at checkout, and then keep an eye on the stats. No, it's more of a white gloved experience. It is a partnership. It is collaborating. It is talking about, hey, your abandoned cart emails haven't been as effective. Maybe you could mention something about, you know, Sezzle in there and breaking up the payments and giving people that have already not checked out or converted an additional, you know, nudge to be able to do so. So we've spent a lot of time on that. But I think overall, and Neha, I really liked what you said about knowing your customer and giving a shit yet again. I think time and time again, that has proven to be a strategy that has worked, will work, and will continue to do so. We have absolutely doubled down on that mission in the last 12 months or so. We've always been in the game to financially empower the next generation. I think what you'll notice around the world with the success of Sezzle and the success of our competitors, Affirm's IPO in the US and Afterpay's upcoming global listing, is buy now, pay later is here to stay. And for the most part, it's a product that works. You could theoretically select a provider around the world that's going to, you know, appear at your checkout and provide you with a positive material impact. But that said, with so many people in such a competitive space, it's been, I mean, candidly, a little consolidated at this point. People are now looking to brands and businesses that care. So what we've done in the last 12 months has been nothing short of spectacular. Of course, we talked about Sezzle Up and Sezzle U being a credit builder, being an educational tool for particularly young consumers to learn about the financial situation that they're in, that maybe past purchasing or shopper behavior has unfortunately led them to be in, and how they can get out of it. And then the Sezzle Scholars Program, which we also just initiated, was we're giving a full ride scholarship each year to a University of Minnesota student, fully expenses paid in the College of Science and Engineering, which is where our CEO Charlie actually graduated from. I'm a University of Minnesota grad as well, so this definitely hits close to home. And I think all of these initiatives, you know, bundled into one, has shown that And we're also the only public benefit corp in Buy Now, Pay Later, which is the first step for us to becoming a certified B Corp. So we're looking for those kind of partners. We're looking for people that have had that mission. They've taken a very strong stance on being climate neutral or giving back to their customers, giving back to the environment, and becoming a PBC and hopefully becoming a B Corp is going to only enhance the scrutiny on us of, yes, we're a publicly traded company. Yes, we're focused on driving revenue and becoming profitable one day through our exponential growth. But at the same time, we're doing that. Not only are we doing it responsibly, but we're doing it by collaborating, working in the best interest of our shopper first. And by doing that with our shoppers and giving them, the best experience. We're the highest consumer rated solution on the market, which is of course important to note. But by doing that, by focusing on that, by doubling down on giving them that best experience, at the end of the day, it really only translates to value for our partners.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. That was a great session in terms of, I think we covered so many different topics in the founder's life and what is pertinent to them. Just a kind of backdrop to the environment that we're kind of living in today and how everybody really just wants to get on with it and get out. I think there's a lot to take away in regards to the market in terms of the online space, as well as what other things you can do to really complement your product, your company, your organization online. And I think the pertinent message is just keep on top of what your customer does, wants, and needs, because the more you know your customer, the more you're going to be able to attract them to come back over and over again. With that being said, I want to thank you all for taking part today, especially the audience who has been quite generous with their time. We've gone over by 20 minutes as I think there was a lot to talk about. So thank you to Ryan. Thank you to Neha. I know it's not easy to take that time out of your busy days, especially prepping for these sessions, as well as taking the time today to be live with us. So thank you so much for that. And hopefully we'll do another session together in the near future. Thank you so much.